Hey, what's going on, everybody? Before we get started today, I want to ask you a question. How do you know whether or not you are a proactive or reactive person? Think about that. Really think about it by answering one simple question. Are you who you are today because of your own decisions? After thinking deeply, respond honestly. All right. So we're going to get into today's episode. But before we do, subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below with your answers to the question. We're going to answer for ourselves personally as well at the end of today's video. So let's get into it.
Bread is of little use to the man who has betrayed his soul.
Maybe you're the protagonist in your story, but like there's a million other people.
So today's topic is life's circle of concern and circle of influence, and how proactive and reactive people utilize these circles. So this comes from Stephen R. Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Go pick it up. It's chapter 1, Be Proactive. That's one habit of 7 habits of becoming a highly effective person. So let's jump right into it. We need to talk about a little bit of background info before we can really break down what these circles mean. So I'm gonna ask John, what does it mean to be a proactive person?
Okay, yeah. So in the book, just some little nuggets I drew from is that a proactive person is resourceful and takes initiative. He breaks down the ability to choose your response. A highly proactive person recognizes the responsibility. They do not blame circumstances or conditions or conditioning for their behavior. Their behavior is a product of their own choice based on values and feelings. Another good one is whether it rains or shines, it makes no difference to them. They are value driven, and if their value is to produce good quality work, it isn't a function of whether the weather is conducive to it or not. They pull from more of their circle of influence and try not to let circle of concern dictate how they run their life. Going off of that, on the opposite end, someone who draws more in the circle of concern would be a reactive. I think Dev's going to touch on that.
Yeah, so John just explained someone that was proactive, self-initiated behavior. They don't need someone to tell them if it's going to be sunny outside or raining. But the opposite to that is being reactive. You're letting everything externally play with your emotions, play with your actions in the long run. What's his name? Stephen Covey. What's it? How do you say it? Covey. He defines being reactive. Focusing on the weakness of other people, the problems in the environment and circumstances over which they have no control. Their focus results in blaming and accusing attitudes, reactive language, and increased feelings of victimization. I know we've all heard of the victim mentality, right? A lot of people, that I think today's society, that word's thrown around a lot. This book defines being proactive and reactive as very, very good definitions. Gives very good explanations. Then we're moving into, let's see, are we bouncing into David, defining the direct?
Right. Yeah. So in order to fully comprehend the circle of influence and circle of concern, we kind of have to categorize life's problems, and David's going to jump into that.
Right. So Stephen Covey in the book defines these problems as sort of existing in 3 primary areas. So that would be direct control, indirect control, and no control. And it's important to know where these problems exist in our own lives and maybe in other people's lives as well, just so we can start taking those first steps towards the solutions to them. And an example of a direct control issue would be sort of dependent on our own habits, right? Our own behavior. And those are directly within our control to fix. If I want to wake up in the morning on time, that's on me to wake up and set the alarm, and that's within my control to do that. Indirect control is defined by Stephen Covey as the way we sort of have influence methods over the problems in our lives, right? So it's the way that we try and influence those around us, and we don't have necessarily the control over the reactants to those methods. We can just try our best and aim for the best for those. And so for no control, those are problems that are defined as just situational realities, right? Like we can't change the past. We can't stop an asteroid from hitting the Earth. Those are things that we do not have control over. And it's important to know where these are so that way we can start operating within the circle of influence and to alleviate some of that concern.
Yeah. So the circle of influence and the circle of concern, you want to think of how me and John defined proactivity and being reactive. These two definitions go into either of these categories. When you're focused on the concern, right? You always hear people, don't worry so much. You can't control what's outside of your control. That's your circle of concern, right? Like the weather outside. Are you not going to show up to work because it's sunny or because it's raining outside? You don't control that. So you're going to let something that's external affect you internally and affect your long-term decisions. Rather than if you're proactive, right, you're productive and you look for the best way to optimize your time, for instance, you're going to focus on things that you are in control of. You're going to focus on the things that you can grab or the things that you can have control of over, such as waking, like David gave an example, waking up early. If your job starts at 9 o'clock and you know you have to eat breakfast at 8, that means you have to get up by 7:30. That is within your influence. That is within your control. It's even... there is, what was the second, not direct, but indirect. So if something that is indirect, right, you still have indirect, such as, say, your little brother, little sister. You can influence them indirectly, but you can't necessarily control their outcome in a situation. You can give them, maybe they see you working out at the gym and they say, okay, like I want to lose weight. They see you doing it, but they talk about it. You can give them some influence. You can't control the outcome. You can't control what they do long term or the thing that comes at the end, but you can give them that head start. You can give them that influence.
Yeah. So what I did is I created this diagram here. It'll be somewhere on the bottom left, bottom right. So, and I'm going to just give us kind of a breakdown of the circles and how they are in the book. So in this diagram, you see a darker circle. That's the circle of concern. You see a lighter circle that's highlighted as a circle of influence. And outside of both of those circles is the no concern area, right? So now that we have that baseline understanding of how it's kind of formatted, and what it means to be proactive and reactive, what are the circles of influence and circle of concern? Let's take 4 problems. On this diagram, we have my physical health, 1, my favorite sport team's record, 2, my family's eating habits, and an asteroid hitting Earth. So step 1 in the book, it talks about segregating these problems into ones that you have a mental and emotional investment with. And so, for myself, the way I categorize this is I don't have an emotional investment in an asteroid hitting Earth. We could what if all day is kind of what it's about. Yeah. You can what if all day. But I am emotionally invested in the Lakers, right? So that's going to be something I'm emotionally invested in. That's, my physical health, my family's eating habits. These are things that I'm emotionally invested in. So they're going to go inside the circle of concern. But within the circle of concerns, there's things I have a direct or indirect influence on. These are going to go inside the circle of influence, right? So we're going to segregate those problems into the circle of influence. My physical health, I have direct control on that. I control what I eat. I control what I do with my time. I could control my working out, right? I may not have a direct control on my family's eating habits, but there's ways I can influence that, right? So I can go to the grocery store. I can cook three nights out of the week a healthier meal. Options. I could provide options, education through documentaries, what I've learned in my own personal experience. These are things that I have direct influence or indirect influence on, right? So just kind of looking at this diagram, you see 2 things in the circle of influence, 1 thing in the circle of concern, and 1 in no concern, right? And so kind of coming back to what Dev said, and John, he touched on slightly, was a reactive person is going to spend their time in the circle of concern, focusing there, or on the circle of no concern. I think we've all met somebody that's like, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? Worrying about stuff that, 1 in a million, right? Imagine meeting somebody that's like, well, there's going to be an asteroid that hits the Earth. It's a possibility. Imagine meeting that person. you could what if all day, right? What if the Lakers win the championship? It hasn't happened yet, right? So you could just what if all day.
Right. And then for the circle of influence, like you said, providing options for your family.
Right.
You don't necessarily have control over how they choose to eat when they know there's options in there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And so that kind of brings us to, how, I think we discussed a little bit how a proactive versus a reactive person would utilize these circles.
Yeah. We discussed a little earlier, but utilization is definitely in the benefit of our own personal, I don't want to say personal gain, because we can be working as groups, we can be working together as a team, but utilization means you're optimizing something to your ability. So when you're thinking of utilization, being productive and being proactive is definitely you're utilizing your time, your energy, and your efforts to move in a way to get the most out of your energy, to get the most out of your time. But in order to utilize being reactive, you have to be put in a very specific situation, such as I think we had an example like if you were stranded, right? How reactive can you be? How quick can you think on your feet? There's not a lot of situations where you can be
I think I don't think we're comprehending it the same way. Like, I think the biggest difference between a proactive person and a reactive person isn't the word reacting, Yeah. A proactive person still reacts. The big difference is responsibility.
Yeah.
A person who's proactive accepts responsibility with their actions, and they know that their actions, if they fail, they're responsible for their own failure. Where a reactive person, if they fail, they're very quick to say, I'm not responsible for my failure. It's my boss's fault.
Exactly.
It's my coworker's fault.
Right.
It was the weather's fault. Or a proactive person was like, I'm responsible for my failure. This is how I will start to fix the problem starting now. There's no analysis paralysis is what I'm getting at. Yeah. In the book, he talks about the guy at the company.
Yeah.
The president's very, authoritarian, and he treats his staff very gopher-like, which means go do this, go do that, not much free thinking. The staff is very unmotivated, it seems like, and they're very quick to say the reason why we're not succeeding is because our boss is weak in these categories. Throughout the story, someone does not waste his time complaining. He tries to predict what the boss will want, being proactive. Through time and consistency of doing that, being proactive, his boss ends up respecting him enough to take on responsibility. And his coworkers are quick to be like, oh, I don't know why he gets special treatment. It's because he spent the last year being proactive instead of being reactive. He accepted responsibility. He knew who his boss was, and he wasn't going to let that affect his time at the workplace, because we're all there to make money, make more money for the most part,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I was trying to give reactiveness sort of like a benefit of the doubt, because I can't really think of a situation where you can be reactive and it's a positive gain to yourself or anybody else.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So let's not force that. I mean,
so
it's one thing. I think adaptive is a good word, but how he's breaking down the book it's not a pro in any sort of way.
Yeah,
Right.
no, absolutely not.
And I think we can cut that. I think we can cut that from our thing, just us talking. I
kind of like how you chimed in there, but
okay.
You know what I mean? Because it clears it up. You know what I mean? Because it clears up how I was defining it, and then also we're referencing 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and how he's defining it. The author defines it as it's not a good thing to be reactive to a lot of situations.
I mean, there's actually one point in the book where Stephen Covey describes that a proactive person is positive in nature. Like the things that they do, the fruits that they see are positive in nature. Someone who's reactive, it tends to lean to more, it manifests into negativity in nature. You know, like John said, it's their fault. Victim mentality. It's everything else around me is very negative.
No responsibility.
And that's pervasive throughout society, right? We can see that everybody has some reason to be reactive if you look at life in that manner.
Exactly.
Right. So I'll ask the question. We'll start with Dev, but how would you recommend starting to be proactive and utilizing these circles today?
So I do have like a short quote before I read it. I would say things that are applicable Really think about how you're emotionally driven, what triggers you. Think about what you are productive at, if you're productive at work. What time of day do you get the most done? Is it the morning, nighttime, evening? Focus on your strengths. Don't focus on things that you don't have control over. Don't focus on things that you're weak at. But other than that, like you're going to know what's best for you, right? So find your emotions, find what triggers you, find what time of day you work best at. Get things done, be productive, and move in that capacity. But to summarize all that, I wrote, whether your problems are direct, indirect, or no control, the solution to any problem is in your hands. You decide on your progress through a problem or conclude your defeat. So at the end of the day, your happiness depends on you. So don't point the finger, don't become a victim. Move in a way that you want to be productive. And so I think that should help everybody. That's helped me, you know what I mean? Especially journaling, that's another thing, but yeah. So that's mine.
All right. How about you, John? How would you recommend starting today?
One thing I just had a quick thought I want to get out of my head is that any TV show, I'm a big fan of anime. I'm a big fan of TV shows. Any main character you watch, think about it. They're a proactive character. They normally want to succeed a goal, right? Black Clover, I want to be the Wizard King. Naruto, I want to be Hokage. And they're not reactive. They're proactive the whole time in their journey. And that's why we love them.
Shout out to all the anime fans.
Yeah, for sure.
So one thing to be proactive is, I think waking up early is just a good step. You know, even if you don't have to, I think it's just a good habit to build. And I think just doing that one thing will be a snowball effect into being more productive in other aspects of your life.
Yeah,
okay. Hell yeah. All right. How about you, David? How would you start using these circles? And if you were somebody that was just learning about it, or how would you become more proactive? What would your first step be? What do you recommend?
So what I recommend based off of what I've read from Stephen Covey's book is to start writing out your, I guess, problems or your concerns, and then taking those and then recategorizing them into the 3 control tiers, right? Is it something you have direct control over? Is it something that you have indirect control over? Or do you just not have control over this thing that you're worried about at all? And then from those, start seeing how you could implement the circle of influence and the circle of concern, knowing where those should be on the playing field for you and how you tackle them. And then where can you be proactive? Decide. So
Yeah.
Hey, I would like to add, I want to change mine.
Go ahead.
too late. No, just
No,
kidding.
send it.
A proactive, if you could do one thing, try to remember to smile and laugh. Okay? People like people who smile more. That's just going to earn you better merit across your work, relationships, people. If you're always scowling, it's kind of probably being not proactive.
Yeah.
You know, you make the effort to smile and be happy, that shit will affect everything.
True.
Yeah,
Caveat, David Goggins. Caveat.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's like David Goggins says, you know, I'm the happiest motherfucker in the building, but I got a scowl on my face.
Yo, and I'm sure people don't want to go talk to him, bro.
That's
I'm
for
always
damn
smiling
sure.
and laughing. I don't know. Like, people want to have fun.
Hell yeah. So I think the bases were covered really well on how we would start today. I think taking inventory is a good one.
Yeah.
Start smiling today. And, you know,
Smile right now. If you're watching the video, you better be smiling right now.
like Dev said, journaling and breaking down things into, is this a problem that I have direct control on? Is it a problem I can indirectly influence? Or is this just something that I'm kind of worrying about for no reason? It's in the no concern zone that I should just kind of let that go. Right? So there's 2 things I'd like to mention. One is called the Serenity Prayer, right? Get to know it. It's in Alcoholics Anonymous, never been, but there's
shit's so good.
it's a big thing, and it's a reference frame I think a lot of people could benefit from in their life. So it says, Lord, give me the courage to change the things which can and ought to be changed, the serenity to accept the things that cannot be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. That, just knowing that alone will change your life dramatically. Bless you.
My bad.
If you just understand what problems you can change, and then to have the courage and go and actually change them, you know, that'll be one of the biggest changes you can implement in your life today. And, you know, I don't know who said it first, but I heard it in a Jeff Logan podcast. He said, God helps those that want to help themselves. So take that
Amen.
and run with that. Be proactive. You could pray on something, right? You could pray on something, but if you're not proactive and you're not putting any proactivity into achieving what you want, God's just not going to give it for you. You got to work.
Yeah. And one thing too, if you let "this isn't easy" come out of your mouth, you're leaning into becoming a victim. I hear that so much is, oh, it's not that easy. It's not, no one said it was supposed to be easy. Being productive is not easy. It's hard. That's why a lot of people can't stay in the productive mindset, because it's hard to stay in the moving of productivity.
And that bad.
Yep.
So don't ever let yourself think that, oh, this is hard and I want it to be easy, because you put yourself in a specific situation for it to be hard. That's why you're there. You know what I mean? You put yourself there to be there. So that's I just wanted to say that.
You know, speaking of like consistency and stuff, and I said smile, we're at this PTO meeting with all the teachers, and one of the teachers, because they call me sunshine and rainbows because I think everything's like a good time.
Yeah.
They were like, Croson, do you ever get upset? Like, do you ever get mad at shit? And I'm like, dude, do you fucking even know me? Like, it takes effort to be happy, you know?
Yeah.
I go out and choose to be happy. I don't let this shit bother me.
Dude, there's
Of course I get mad.
Yeah.
Fucking question is that?
Before
But like, I actively try to be happy, you know?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what Stephen Covey says. There's a sentence that says, happiness, like unhappiness, is a proactive choice. You choose to be unhappy or you choose to be happy. The choice is yours. It doesn't matter if you're sad or something happened to you, or you're fucking great mood, even though you had a horrible day yesterday.
Right.
You know what I mean? You choose what you get to walk through that door with, a smile or no smile.
Right. Definitely. All right. I'm going to take us out. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We started today with a question, and we'll finish by answering it. So how do we know which type of person we are? Proactive, reactive? So we're going to take the time to answer, are you who you are today because of your own decisions? What do you say?
Yes. There's a lot of improvement regarding being reactive. We're human beings, we're emotional creatures. But as far as where I'm at now in my life, I think I put a lot of work in. You know what I mean? It's nothing ginormous. I haven't achieved a lot, but I'm proud of where I'm at, where I'm standing today. So.
Hell yeah. All right, John, how about you? Are you a product of your own life's decisions?
I mean, yeah, I like to think so. You know, I'm sure throughout the way, everyone helps you out some way or another, you know, or things do mislead your course. But for the most part, I like to think so.
Yes.
All right. David?
Yes.
Short.
I'm just
Sweet.
kidding. Yeah, I am a product of my own decisions.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm on board there too. I'm a product of my own decisions, failures and all. You know, you got to thank God for the trials and the tribulations and the great times. So, you know, I made the failures, I made the successes. These are a product of my own decisions.
Yeah.
So take that, think about it, drop your answer down in the comments below, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Follow us on our social medias. It'll be down in the description below. We can't wait to hear from you, and we hope you have a great rest of your week. And before we take off, remember, who you are today, the work you put in today and now, equals who you will be tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Peace.